Hello, hello. What seeds are we starting 8 weeks before our last frost date? There's a lot of wiggle room, so these are just things that I'm doing, that I'm thinking about, just to keep myself organized and not start everything all at once or anything too soon. I don't want to end up with leggy plants that are weak. I want the strongest plant. So even if I'm just putting a tiny little plant outside, I would rather put out a strong tiny plant than something that's really big and is gonna, struggle to grow. Before talking about the next seeds that are going to be started, let's go look at the ones that have been growing for a while. Let's go pop around the house. I did dig inside of one of these just to see if anything was going on, and they are rooting. These are the fava beans, the broad beans in the toilet paper tubes. They are a little dry. I need to get some water in here. The sweet potato, I was just ready to give up on, but when I lifted it up, you can see there are tiny little sprouts starting. So I'm not giving up on you, sweet potato. Then I've got all my onions. I turn them a quarter turn every day so that, as you can see, they're growing. This was facing the window. They were growing towards the window. So now I've got them turned so they can start to grow this way a little bit. Turn to these guys. These are my spring onions. Here's all my beautiful Napa cabbage. This we pricked out in a video together. It's doing great. Turned those guys just a little bit. So that's what I've got downstairs in this one south-facing window. My other cabbages, there's usually a patch of light that I follow along the floor every day. I know this is real high-tech seed starting, and I just move it. There's no sun to speak of right now, but they're doing well too. Not as well as the Napa. Okay, there is nothing attractive about this seed starting setup. However, it's pretty functional for me in the small space that I have. This is a south-facing window, double window. It's the only one that I have to start seeds in. So what I've done is I've started multiple seeds in a tiny tray, and those will get pricked out. You can watch a video where I prick out cabbage and into seed modules, and then those trays go into the window, and it'll be a lot better for space. Right now this just looks like madness. I have more celery started than a human being in a family of 7 should ever have, but I do. So is what it is. These are asters that just germinated. I have a big plastic dome on top of these. There is one hollyhock that came up. And actually, so the lettuce came up, and this is Scabiosa and Amaranth. Now, I don't suggest starting Amaranth yet, but I've never grown it before, so I did want to just play with starting it during different weeks. The straw flower has come up, so I will remove that dome. Once things come up, I just take off the dome. This is the fleabane. So that's exciting. Can you see those little guys in there? So I will take off the dome on that one. Violas take a long time to germinate. This is the lettuce. The eggplant aren't up yet. I've got an eggplant in the yogurt container, and I've got an eggplant here. Those have not come up yet. Parsley has not come up yet. Garlic chives have not come up yet. That's a clary sage. That has not come up yet. So let me just kind of stand back and show you. Oh, and this, these are foxglove digitalis, and I've never grown those before. So I started some in here. Nothing's happened yet. I'm going to start another round and plant them a little bit differently, plant them in seed modules and just see what happens. But let me, without tripping over this dome, back up and just show you. So this feels just like a hot mess to me right now, and yet it will all look very neat and organized once those seed module trays come into play. And I will just be putting them on here. I'll be watering them from the bottom once they're in the modules and adding a little fish emulsion to that water. That way it encourages their roots to grow down. Right now I spray them with the spray bottle until they're pricked out into those modules. I have a cat, and so that gate stays up in front of that window. So there's nothing attractive about this, but this hallway is also not very attractive. We are working on spackling holes and painting it, and I have a whole beautiful vision for what this hallway is going to become. However, for now, this is what I got. You just use what you have, you know, use what you have. Don't not grow a seed because you don't have grow lights. I've still got my little heater, you might remember from another video. That little heater is aiding in germination. That's keeping things nice and warm because we keep our house very chilly. All right, let's go see what seeds we're starting this week. Last week, I talked about planting eggplant. You can start your eggplant anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. I started mine in week 9, and then I have a couple more varieties that came from Baker's Creek that I will be starting in week 8. Now, I don't believe my eggplant has germinated yet. Let's see if it says it sprouts in 10 to 15 days. So excited about these. Thai eggplant is my absolute favorite. This one is called Thai Green Frog Fingers. And this one is, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Gaboma. Isn't that beautiful? All right, I'm also going to be starting some Salvia, Sirius Blue Sage. I'm growing this because I want those flowers for my pollinators. Let's see what this says. It says it's a tender perennial. Stunning blue flower spikes will welcome hummingbirds, honeybees, and butterflies. Start indoors 10 weeks before last frost date. I'm doing 8 because 1, I just got this in the mail, and 2, because I think there's some wiggle room always in the 8 to 10 weeks thing. It says it sprouts in 10 to 30 days, and that its ideal temperature is 60 to 90. So, and it's frost hardy. That's a really pretty one. Okay, dill. Do we direct sow dill? Do we start dill indoors? I say you do both. I say try some indoors. You don't have to go crazy with it. I have 2 kinds here. This is Grandma Inks. So here's the thing. It's recommended that you direct sow dill. And I did have some success with this, but the best dill that I grew last year was I bought some starts, and that dill was so much stronger than anything I direct sowed. So I'm gonna try to make my own starts this year, but I will also be popping dill seeds in amongst things like my cabbages, in between the rhubarb, wherever I can just find a little space. In between the garlic is fine. I'm just gonna look for places to pop that in and see what happens. Get your parsley started if you haven't yet. This says 8 to 12 weeks before last frost, so you do want to get that going. You can direct sow this. I'm trying to think if I did or not. I do not believe I direct sowed parsley, so I start this indoors. You can get your marjoram started if you like marjoram. I think I mentioned this already that I grew this. Didn't really use it, but the pollinators loved it. Now cilantro, another one very much like dill. Do we direct sow this? Do we start this indoors? Again, I say do both. My cilantro in zone 5, where I was gardening before, actually came back every year from the seeds it dropped. So I have an entire bag, huge brown paper bag of the seeds from my cilantro plant that I let go to seed. Now those seeds on the cilantro plant are your coriander. So if you buy coriander from the store, you could just save your seeds and harvest and make your own coriander. This year I decided not to do that. I still have a jar of them. I'm just considering them seeds at this point, and I'm going to take that paper bag full of those. They're still on the stems, and I'm just gonna go shake it. I'm gonna go shake it over different parts of the garden and see what I can get to come up. Now, I do not need more oregano. Once your oregano starts, it is invasive. You do not probably ever need to plant it again, but in case you want to, it's really lovely in pots, so you could get some started to grow in pots. This would be really pretty, kind of just growing out, stretching over the sides. But what it does do is it produces these beautiful purple flowers. The bees go crazy for it. They're beautiful. I actually harvest those flowers, a lot of them, for teas and cooking. You can start your time. Again, it comes back for me, so I don't typically need to have more time unless I'm looking for a different kind. You know, there are so many different kinds of time that you can get. We're moving on to one of the most beautiful things you can grow in your garden is calendula. Oh, it's so pretty. Calendula is, you can use it in your teas, you can infuse oils with calendula, you can use those oils to then make salves. Calendula is a magical plant. If you can only plant a few things, please go ahead and pick up some calendula. Typically it's a very yellow plant. These were two different varieties, Touch of Red Buff and Pink Surprise. What else do I have? I'm going to start more pansies. These are from Baker's Creek. That color. Oh, that color. And then I have some violas. I'm also going to start these. What does this say? Average germination 14 to 21 days. Ooh, baby. And this one, 4 to 7. So 4 to 7 and 14 to 21. So violas, pansies. I'm getting both of those going. All right, the last two, Mullen and Catnip. There's no pretty pictures on either of these. Both of these require a little bit of cold stratification. So I have winter sowed both of these. And if you don't want to winter sow these, you can do a couple things. You can put the seed packets in the refrigerator. You can take the seeds and you can put them in a wet paper towel, and you can put that wet paper towel in your refrigerator. So just a nice flat paper towel, use a Ziploc baggie to store it in, put it in your refrigerator, and you can get a cold stratification that way. Leave it in for a couple weeks. For me, it's just easier to get it outside, get them in the milk jugs. We're still in cold temperatures here on and off, so it should be fine. I started these actually maybe a couple of weeks ago when we still had really cold temperatures. But if you have not done that, you can go ahead and just throw them in the refrigerator and that will be fine. Mullen, I'm really excited to grow. I've never grown it before, and I've heard that catnip can be quite invasive. I'm gonna grow those in pots or grow bags and then harvest that for my cat, who I think will love it. I think over time we'll start to get a handle on what for us works particularly well in each week. And so, you know, you don't have to worry, like if you didn't start something, if you didn't start your parsley 2 weeks ago, don't worry about it. Go ahead and start it. It's not a big deal. If you didn't start your onions, yeah, it might be a little late, but I would say go for it, do it. Plant those onions and just see what happens. The worst that can happen is you get little baby onions instead of big onions. And is that such a bad problem? I grew baby onions last year. So my first year soil, you know, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I just grew little onions, and that was fine for me. I'm still eating off of them in March. So we'll learn as we go. We just have to experiment and try, like that sweet potato. I've never done anything like that before, but wouldn't a kid, you know, who was just so curious, be able to do something like that without expectation? And I think that's really what we need to do, is just lower the expectations and say, this is joyful, this is fun, this is a learning experience. And we can do that and still reap incredible rewards, rather than worrying so much about how every single thing
is, you know, doing on whether we're getting the timing right, just go for it. If you never plant the seed, you will never have the plant. I'd love to know what you are planting in week 8. What zone are you in? What things are you thinking about this year? What do you want to try that's different and new? Like my eggplant. This is my new mug that my friend Mara sent me. I'd love to stay connected in the comments section so I know who you are, what you're thinking about, and what you're growing. If you're new here, please consider subscribing so we can stay in touch and you can be part of this beautiful community that's forming. Okay. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you.